G'day everyone. I'm joined by Josh. Josh is obviously the head coach for Sim Strength, competing at the upcoming uh, Team Champs in March in 2 months' time. So I'm really looking forward to having Josh on today and asking him some questions. Welcome, Josh. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing really well, of course. I'm just super excited to sit down and chat with you, chat all things Team Champs, preview the event, talk about your team, and pump you up. Now, for those that might not realize, Josh is a very reputable, very successful coach in Melbourne, a very successful powerlifting coach who's been around the game for a very long time and actually had a very successful year last year at the Team Champs. And so I'm super excited to chat to Josh today. The first thing I want to ask about would be for you to introduce yourself. So who are you? What's your background? And then I want you to introduce your team. Who is lifting for Sim Strength this year?
Yep. So thank you. Thank you for your kind words, first and foremost. So I'm Josh, and I am the head coach at Sim Strength, which started in around officially in 2019, but we kind of started up in 2017, 2018. Me personally, I come from a powerlifting background, and then as of this past recent year, been dabbling a little bit more into bodybuilding, but I'm steadily getting back into powerlifting. In terms of my team representing at Team Champs, my four lifters are number one, we have Thuy Pham, who's representing the 56 kilogram weight class. Second, we have Demetrius, who is representing the 90 kilo weight class. Then we have Megan, who's doing the 60 kilogram weight class. And lastly, we have Timothy Wang, who's doing the 100 kilo weight class.
Excellent, man. And so even though you've been dabbling in a bit of bodybuilding, I suppose most of your coaching still centers around powerlifting. I imagine most of your, I guess, coaching world is powerlifting. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, the vast majority of my clients are powerlifting or people looking to compete in powerlifting.
Excellent. And I mean, what better place to put together a team and showcase your successes as a coach than Team Champs? Now, your team this year looks super strong. Some of the other coaches that I've already spoken to in this series of previews and whatnot have spoken to the strength of your team and the potential successes that you may have. Now, I want to first, before we kind of go into that, wind back a little bit to last year. I see some of these names are
Mhm.
similar to last year, and there is a couple of changes as well. So, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but Tim also competed last year, if that's right. But the other three are new to your roster. What sparked the changes, and what are those changes?
Yep. With Tim repeating into this year, yeah, I think he's gonna. Yeah, we're really excited to kind of see what he can put onto his total in this 1 year time frame. But for the other three people, the main reasons we had to change was Ty has kind of he's taking a break from powerlifting at the moment. He's trying other physical endeavors. I believe he is doing a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu and he's taking a break from the barbell. So if anyone wants to challenge him to any spars, definitely do so. So I hope you beat him in BJJ so he comes back to powerlifting because I want him on
Yes.
the team again.
I think it's a natural
Um,
arc, right? Is
and
to
then,
powerlifting into BJJ.
yeah, I know, right? But yeah, and then the other one, Twee, coming into the team, she was actually in the IPF this past year, but since we're kind of done with that for a while, I thought the best introduction to USAPL would be Team Champs. Would be like a really fun competition for her to kind of debut into the USAPL. And then Megan coming into the team as well. Definitely, yeah, a good, really fun kind of replacement. Just because the other people on the team have just kind of taken breaks. Last year, I think we had Daniel Shia. He is currently studying to become a doctor, and then he went overseas for a good portion of last year on a Europe trip, so took a little break from powerlifting as well. So mostly the interchangeable lifters on the team at the moment are just filling in for people taking breaks.
Yeah, excellent. And so, yeah, like I said, you've got a very strong team there. I want to ask you firstly about Twee because I seen that she competed, I think, at the IPF Worlds in the juniors and whatnot. She's a very talented lifter. What do you have to say for her and her chances in the 56 class? Because there are a few lifters in that class, and it's looking like it's going to be quite competitive.
Yep, she definitely is a very talented lifter. I'm keen for her to probably debut into the 56 kilo weight class. For the last IPF World Junior Championships, prior to that, she was competing mainly in the 63s. The
Wow.
actual reason why she dropped into the lower weight class was due to her work schedule. With She has pretty intensive night shifts as a nurse, so it was kind of hard for her to get her food in, and she actually dropped like 3 to 4 kilos just from work. So we decided, like, instead of force feeding her back up, let's just try to settle her weight back down, which was definitely quite a challenge, being like almost like 5 kilos lighter than normal, especially being so light already. It's quite a large percentage. So I think this competition coming around will give her a better opportunity to showcase what she can do in that class without having to kind of suffer from that weight cut. So I think that's the main thing I'm looking forward to for her in the USAPL.
Right, and tell me a little bit about Demetrius. I know he's also a very talented lifter, and he's made some great strides in the last few years. Hasn't got a huge ton of competition experience, or at least that's probably not the right language, but maybe just hasn't had a good chance to put together his best performances on the platform. What do you have to say for Demetrius and his chance, Mitz and his chances of hitting the platform and the podium? Because the 90 kilos is not the most stacked class that there is, and we'll talk a little bit about the hundreds in a second because that's a really exciting class. How do you see him faring?
Yeah, I think Mitz coming to coach him as of recent has been really exciting. I think we're really gathering some great training momentum. I think he's going to do really well with how training's going at the moment. I think we are the strongest and healthiest. We're in the strongest and healthiest position we've ever been in, and I think with the past few years, Mitz's training has been like riddled with injuries and little tweaks here and there. But I think we finally found like a really good formula with his training to ensure everything is coming up nicely without any pain or discomfort. So I think the showing that he's going to do at Team Champs this year is going to be a really big improvement on his last competition. So I think he has a really good shot at winning the 90 kilos.
Yeah, wow. You kind of said, I like what you said there about he's the strongest and healthiest. And I think sometimes people can forget the importance of being healthy, like not healthy in terms of cardio or fitness, which are obviously important as well. But in terms of being injury free, oftentimes lifters' whole prep can be derailed. They can be physically strong, but unable to show that strength because they're hurt or they're unable to, train fully. And, from outside looking in, and you can tell me, maybe give me a bit more insight here, but it does seem like he has had a number of preps interrupted or just hasn't been able to put his best foot forward because of those injuries. Sometimes the best preps are the ones where you just don't get hurt, where you go, cool, we're not going to put the foot down, we're not going to train crazy. Instead, we want to arrive to the meet day feeling healthy so you can put your best foot forward. Is that fair to say around Mitz, or am I mis-evaluating from Instagram?
Oh, 100%. I think, just having the most pain-free prep is definitely like going to result in the best gains. I'd agree with that for sure.
Cool. Now tell me a little bit about Megan. I don't really know much about her. She's in the 60 class, which is a pretty deep class. If I'm not wrong, I think there's 9 or 10 lifters in there. So unlike Mitz, who's only got 4 in his class, and Thuy, I think, is only 4 or 5, the 60 class is super stacked. There's a lot of really strong women in that class. Tell me a little bit about Megan. Tell me about her training and kind of how you see her placing, or what you're kind of hoping for her in that category.
Yes. So I'm very excited for her. She is a bench god. So I
Okay.
think she will have like a really good chance of benching between 95 to 100 kilos. And she's also really good at deadlifting, which is not a combination you always see together, like a really strong bencher and a really strong deadlifter. So I think she's going to have a lot of potential to pull something very heavy. And as of recent, her squat has been getting a lot stronger as well. So I think we're going to see some big improvements from nationals. And I think she'll definitely be contesting for top 3 in the 60 kilogram class.
Okay, so improved from nationals, because I think her nationals performance was a little bit below her best, and but definitely making some improvements there and fighting for top 3. I mean, to be top 3 in a category of 10 is such an achievement, and I think it's going to be really fun to see those classes kind of play out.
Yeah, for sure. Really exciting.
Now, lastly, Tim. Now, team's super interesting to me. Again, I wasn't there last year, so I'll be curious to hear what you have to say. And I actually spoke with Michael earlier today, and he kind of told me the story on the day of the meet. Didn't really know who Tim was. I don't think many people did. And he kind of burst onto the platform, and Michael was telling me, we thought we had Tony wrapped up, like, first place in the bag, and then we looked over our shoulder and was like, holy shit, this Tim guy is freaking strong. We're gonna have to be really careful. Of course, it worked out for Tony, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Tim might have been like third best male lifter of the day or second best male lifter. I don't think Tony won, so maybe it must have been third best male lifter. And so it was very close to being the best male lifter on the day. Just happened to be in a tough weight class with Tony in there. Tell me about Tim. Tell me about last year's comp as well in that category, how that played out, and maybe something you learned from that and what you can use to apply this year's comp to hopefully get a better result.
Yeah, so Tim's performance was definitely unreal last year. So I've been coaching Tim since around 2019 now, so it's been a good couple of years. Honestly, he's an extremely surprising lifter in terms of how much he actually gets out from his training numbers. So coming into team championships last year, I didn't anticipate for his strength to be that high. Like, he squatted 265 kilos, which what looked like an opener, and his heaviest squat in training was only about 230 kilos. And he had had nothing more than that on his back before. So getting 35 kilos out of his final squat was something I didn't anticipate. And for him to make it look that easy, I was like, this is pretty crazy. And I think that's what took everyone by shock on that day.
I mean, you were shocked as well.
And then coming into his
like
deadlift, the heaviest. Oh, I was so shocked. I wasn't anticipating a 35 kilo kind of jump from his last training numbers. And then similar for his deadlift, he was able to actually lock out 307.5 kilos, which was like over 20 kilos on his best deadlift. Unfortunately, he got red lighted for downward movement. But I think the advantage we have coming into this team champs is that we know that now he gets so much out of so little. So I think this past year, we've been able to milk a lot of gains with doing so much less. And then coming into this competition, we're going to follow a similar strategy, but now we can kind of know what to expect on game day in terms of his peak, how he responds to certain training exposures. And I think we can actually create a plan a lot more accurately now that we can kind of see what he gets out of certain training numbers. And I think now we can come in a bit more prepared and have a bit more accuracy in what we want to hit and how we can contest with his numbers.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, I think one thing that I'm noticing talking to some of the coaches this week, as a common theme that they're describing when it comes to being successful, not only as a coach in general, not only as a comp day coach, and not only, but also as a comp day coach at Team Champs, is this idea of experience. It's the first time you're more likely to make mistakes. You can read everything and plan in your head mentally and write down a comp plan and everything, but when you live the experience, when you're at the meet, when you're watching the lifters, when you make mistakes, you learn, and then you can come back and hopefully use that learning to have an advantage over other teams that might not have as much experience. Would you say that's the case? Because, before we hit record, you kind of mentioned that the first team champs you came to was 2018, where you competed as well. And, now we're 5 years later, you're a much more experienced coach, much more experienced athlete in every way, shape, and form. Do you think that kind of experience is going to be a critical part of being successful at this comp? Because there are some teams there that are much less experienced.
Yeah, 100%. I think the experience in game day handling is going to kind of be the distinguishing factor on who pulls ahead. I think being able to play with the attempts and being really meticulous of how you choose your attempts for your athletes. Also, with the consideration of the opposition is going to be like one of the key metrics to winning the entire team championships.
Yeah, I think understanding the gravity of every attempt, one of my favorite elements, if I can brag about the team champs, is that every placing matters. In a normal meet, in a normal local meet, if you come third or you come seventh, it doesn't matter that much. Maybe you get a medal if you come third, that's nice. Or if you come, say, fourth and seventh or fourth and sixth, that doesn't really matter much normally. Whereas, at this comp, like the difference between finishing second and fourth, or the difference between coming fourth and sixth, can mean the difference between winning the whole comp or coming third or coming eighth or getting relegated into the challengers bracket for the year after, which is like a new feature that we've got this year. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in a moment. But Yeah, I definitely think the more experienced coaches have this advantage over the maybe less experienced, not only coaches but also athletes, because there are athletes that are new. Like you've got a bunch of lifters that are competing this year that haven't competed at a team champs before, and so maybe that environment will be new for them as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think experience is going to be the key defining factor, and yeah, it's just game. The actual competition day itself is just so unique, such a unique kind of experience, and how it plays out is always going to be unpredictable on the day. So I think the more experience you have, it's just a lot easier to kind of deal with the unpredictable things that happen on competition day.
Right. What would you say? I mean, last year you guys came second, right? If I'm not mistaken, runners up. Blue Lift took
Hmm.
home the chocolates, and Sim Strength comes out and amongst 13 teams, second best on the day, takes home a bit of prize money. Is it fair to say that your goal this year would be to win the whole thing, or are your goals a little bit more modest in the sense of just have good days on the platform, do the best you can, and see where it's at, or are you a little bit more competitive than that and have revenge to get?
I'd say it's a bit of both. We definitely want to win this year, but also make sure like the lifters are having the best day, not only just on the platform but from an enjoyment standpoint. I don't want to be like like super intense and like shouting at them and stuff and making them hit numbers that they don't want to hit. So making sure everyone has a good time, but also definitely keen to get some revenge, go for first place. And I definitely think we're in a position to do so. I think the lineup is looking quite good. So definitely, yeah, I think making sure the athletes have a good day and an enjoyable experience is number one. So a lot of camaraderie and all that is going to be number one priority. And then after that, coming in for the win and revenge is going to be a nice, yeah, something nice to strive for.
Yeah, I love that. A very diplomatic answer, Yes, we want to have a fun day, but also revenge. It sounds like is what you're saying. Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. I think, powerlifting is it's a very inclusive sport, right? Like everybody's here to have a good time and you want to lift well, but also it's a very competitive outlet. It's an opportunity. I feel like, there's a space for, I suppose, low pressure meets, but ultimately there's a bit more pressure at this comp. And I think that's part of the fun is putting pressure on yourself and wanting to do your best. And sometimes though, relaxing and just focusing on yourself is the way to get the best result, is the way to get the best overall result, right? So it is a fine line. And I think as a coach, you would know this, that knowing what the right things to say to the right people, maybe someone like, I don't know, I've never met Tim, but maybe someone like Tim is more competitive and he needs to be reminded, like, you're an animal, go out there and you got to kick his ass. And maybe someone else is a bit more placid and you need to,
Mhm.
use the right language and use that right approach, I think is really important. Um, I wanted to ask
Yeah,
you,
100%.
obviously you're an online coaching business, if I'm not mistaken, right? Do you do any coaching in person at a gym, or do you rent any space or anything like this?
Yeah, I do. So I'm primarily online, but I also do in-person coaching at Pro Roll Gym in Doncaster.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, being, yeah, primarily an online coach, how do you go about fostering kind of like a community or fostering a sense of, yeah, camaraderie? Because you mentioned, camaraderie is important for the day. How do you go about, say, with your team of four lifters? Do you have a group chat where you all gossip? Does your whole coaching roster are in a Facebook group or some sort of, Discord or something like this? And if you're doing that kind of stuff, how important is that to you and the community that you're building?
Yep. So for the team chat specifically, we do have a group chat. But generally, what I like to do is kind of just talk to everyone throughout the week as much as I can. And I think just building that one-on-one relationship with each athlete is where I really enjoy. And then I guess being online, a lot of the clients are referrals. So it's kind of like a friend, like my client's friends will join me. So it ends up just being like a different, like small groups at different gyms, being coached by me. And then I feel like the camaraderie is just kind of built from everyone just being coached by me and being in the same space. Like examples like training day, I've got a large handful of clients who train there, and I feel like they all just end up being friends, and I think that's like a big thing for me in terms of just the referrals within the circles for online coaching.
Right. I think like, one of the downsides of being a client in online space is you often don't have those training partners, but it sounds like a lot of your clients um, are training with their training partners who are also trained by you. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, a lot of the case is like that. A lot of the times it's like that.
Excellent. And at a comp like the team champs, where it is very team based, like how do I say? Well, clearly it's team based. That's the name of the comp. But what I mean to say is, for example, when the invitations go out, individual lifters don't get invited, right? Like I didn't email lifters. I invited the coaches. I emailed you. I emailed Didier Vasu. I emailed Sam Skepis. I emailed Victor Lu. I emailed these guys, right? I emailed Rasheen Hawley and um, Beck Potterledge, for example. I emailed the coaches and I say, I want you guys to assemble your best team. How did you go about choosing your lifters for this year's comp? I mean, obviously they're all very talented lifters. Did you have in the back of your head some sort of strategic mindset of like, for example, I know some clubs choose lifters that are in outside weight classes, so choosing a woman in the 100 kilo class or choosing a guy in the 67 class because those classes tend to be less congested? Or is it purely on merit, like someone's DOTS points, for example? Is it based on experience? Do you put out in a call out to all your clients that who put your hand up if you want to represent the team champs, and I can pick from there? Or is there any level of, say, loyalty? Like, for example, maybe one of your clients has been training with you for like 5 years and they're doing really well, and you want to kind of, I suppose, reward them. Like, what's your main criteria when it comes to choosing your lifters?
Yep. So, firstly, when I was assembling the team, I gave priority to everyone who competed last year. So anyone who wanted to do it again can definitely come back. Because yeah, I think everyone who competed last year also wanted revenge on that first place. Just because I think we lost by like 1 point or something. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely gave priority to the people last year, and then people who couldn't do it. And then I just started thinking more so about weight classes. I was like, who's really strong in this weight class that will probably be able to contend for a top three. And that's how I kind of went down the client roster and chose the lifters.
It can be hard because you almost want to choose everyone, right? Like you're like, oh, you're good and you're good, and I'd love for you to represent us. And it's hard because you've got, all of a sudden you've got a list of 10 people who you're like, oh, it'd be awesome if you could compete, but ultimately you can only choose four. Look, Josh, it's been great to talk to you and
Yeah,
hear
I
your
started like
insights. Oh,
messaging.
go. Sorry, continue.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I started like messaging a bunch of lifters. I was like, just make this date free, just in case you might be a sub. Just because it was really hard to choose who to pick. So I was like, just make sure you're like, yeah, if you need, yeah, just clear this day, clear this weekend. So I do have a few. I do have a few lifters in the sub that may make an appearance, but we'll see how we go first. Might be some super switches. Who knows?
Okay, you heard it here first. I'm going to mark that as a clip so I can use that. With some super switches may come. Do you think some clubs are going to do stuff like that where they've maybe got fake lifter nominations in, or maybe someone's listed in the wrong weight class and they're going to change a weight class last minute? Do you think some of the coaches are going to kind of pull strategies like that, or do you think most people are pretty straight shooting? And I'm not saying that that's your strategy. I'm just saying,
Probably. That's Yeah, no, I think it's going to happen. It kind of happened last year with the 75 kilo weight class
yeah.
between Daniel Xia and Brian Ong. There was kind of like it was based on lot order and weigh-ins, who's going to like kind of push up or push down. So I think we might see some athlete changes, maybe some last minute weight class changes. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, until the weeks leading up into the competition.
Right. I think you might notice, but one of the rule changes this year is about that, right?
Was it like 3 weeks before competition is like the last time that you can change
Right.
a lifter?
Yeah, so until 3 weeks out, there's no more changes to classes or lifters, and so lifters have to make weight because you're right. Last year there was lifters, not making weight and just lifting in a different weight class. Excuse me. And the rule that we have is you still can make a change. You can change a lifter or you can change a weight class at the last minute. After the 3 weeks, it's just a 2 point penalty. So effectively, 3 weeks out
Oh,
is when it
okay, that's
closes.
perfect.
So there is still some leeway. So for example, if a lifter gets injured, or if a lifter truly doesn't make weight, like if a lifter is trying to make 82.5 and they weigh 82.6, like, okay, you're not DQ'd, you still lift, you just get a 2 point penalty. And so there is some
Yep.
leeway, but of course, if you want to
That's
be a
big though.
competitive
That's a
club,
big penalty.
it is exactly. It's enough to say you wouldn't do that on purpose. Like it's not a strategic thing that you would do on purpose. Um, but yeah, I definitely think there are going to be
Hmm.
some clubs that are going to be making some switches. And of course, naturally, as is any kind of meet prep, there's going to be some injuries. There's going to be some lifters that might not be able to compete in the end. Maybe personal commitments come up, and there'll be some switches that'll happen, no doubt. But yeah, I'm actually so excited for 3 weeks out, so we can have the more or less final roster and we can put together a timetable and all that kind of stuff. It's gonna be really fun. Look, Josh, it's been super fun to talk to you and to get your insights. You know, you're a super experienced coach, both in general but also at Team Champs. Before I let you go, I want to ask for your hot take on who's winning day one, who's winning the Challengers bracket, who's taking home $500 and definitely getting promoted, and who's your hot take on winning 1, 2, 3 overall.
1, 2, 3. Okay. So for challenger brackets, I think the Chads. Do you know the team, the Chads, with
Of
Remy
course,
and stuff? I
they
think they're
are
gonna
a hot
definitely
favorite, I think.
they're gonna take the win. Yeah, so I think the Chads are gonna definitely take it home on the challenger bracket. Yeah, I'm keen. I'm really keen to see how they compete because Remy's my boy, and I want to see him compete. So excited for that. And in terms of the overall 1, 2, and 3, I reckon. Honestly, I haven't looked enough at the roster at the moment, so I don't really know. But we'll take. I hope we take first.
Okay.
I think ESS will take second, and then maybe Lou Lift third. That was just from a brief look, but I haven't really studied it properly. But that's my hot take for the top
Okay,
three.
so you think it's going to be the same podium as last year with a little bit of a rearrangement?
Yeah, I reckon that'll be the case.
All right, well, I don't want to scare you, but I know some coaches who have elaborate spreadsheets with all the lifters mapped out, previous total bests, open powerlifting research done, and a lot of preparation going in there. So that might be a little bit of a cue that you should probably look at the roster a little bit deeper. But no, Josh, honestly, thanks for your time.
Yes.
I know you're busy. We're all busy. A lot of work to do, goals to hit, and workload on our plate. So I appreciate you taking the time out to chat to us, to give us your insights, to share some stories, and to preview what's going to be hopefully the biggest comp of the year. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.